All right, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Extreme Health Academy. I just want to let you guys know that we have partnered with Dr. John Bergman, one of the most amazing holistic doctors in the world, and we're so excited to be working with him. So we're going to be providing course content to you every single month. There'll be live mastermind Q&A calls. There'll be a community forum. We'll have all kinds of additional information, quick wins, resources, discounts, all kinds of cool stuff in the Academy. So if you guys want to take your health to new levels that you never thought possible, or if you're currently dealing with some kind of health condition, get the roadmap, get the blueprint, get the protocols to get out of that situation at theextremehealthacademy.com. Well, thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. It's coming into fall here. I'm loving it. I never used to be a fall or winter guy, but Wim Hof has changed me. So I'm starting to enjoy winter now, which is kind of weird. I'm more of a surf guy, but coming into winter here, it's an awesome time of year here in Northern California. I hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are. We're going to be talking today with Dr. Steven Sinatra, and he's like America's leading cardiologist. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar, but I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy when I was 15, which is why I stopped playing basketball. And so this will be very, very interesting. And just want to let you guys know, too, that this is a weekly show. So if you want to subscribe right there on your podcast player, on Stitcher or iTunes or anything like that, you can go ahead and hit subscribe. Leave us a review, and we'd appreciate that. We produce shows twice a week and sometimes once a week. So every single week there's new shows coming out. So make sure to check those out. Today we got Dr. Steven Sinatra, and he's a highly respected and sought-after cardiologist. He's been at this for about 35 years. He's a fellow at the American College of Cardiology, as well as the American College of Nutrition. He's certified American Board of Internal Medicine, and the list goes on and on. He's the author of books like The Great Cholesterol Myth and The Great Cholesterol Myth Cookbook, Reverse Heart Disease Now, Heartbreak and Heart Disease, Nutritional and Integrative Strategies in Cardiovascular Medicine. The list of his accomplishments goes on and on. I'm really excited to have him on the show today. Thanks so much, Doc, for being on.
Hey, it's good to be here, Justin.
Excellent. Yeah. So whereabouts in the country are you? Before we started the show, you asked me, but I forgot to ask where you are.
Yeah, I actually live in Florida for several months, but right now I'm speaking from Connecticut.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that mainly where your practice is?
Well, I used to practice in Connecticut. I'm retired from the practice now. I still lecture throughout the country, and I still write books, and I have websites and stuff like that, so I'm still pretty active, but I don't see patients on a day-to-day basis. However, some of my old patients that, still need, a little support, I always, make myself available to them.
Yeah, that's so great. So when you were first starting out, what made you want to get into cardiology?
It's a good question. I was an athlete in college, and I used to wrestle Division I.
Oh, wow.
And when I went to medical school, I asked myself the same question. I thought I was going to go into gastroenterology because I studied with a Yale guy, which was, he wrote a lot of books, and I really thought I was going to do it. Uh-huh. But it didn't have the intensity or the passion that I wanted out of medicine, and I seemed to really excel in emergencies because my athleticism would come up. In other words, when you're an athlete at a Division I level, you're just very sharp when it comes to your hands and motions, and you really dive into it. So I really thought my greatest strength was emergent situations. So I ended up going into cardiology, and I'm glad I did.
Wow. And so is it true in terms of the emergency situation, in terms of people having heart attacks? I've seen these things going around the internet. If you want to stop a heart attack, the best way to do it is like cayenne pepper, drinking that. Is that really true, do you think?
Well, if you can improve blood flow through an occluded vessel, that's why chewing on an aspirin, works. We used to always say to, our patients, if you think you're having a heart attack, just chew on an aspirin and call 911. Yeah, any of that stuff where you can improve blood flow, to an occluded artery and break it up. Capsaicin might work. Grounding, for example, putting your bare feet on the ground. We found that's amazing. That thins the blood. So, if I was practicing cardiology on a day-to-day basis now, with all the research I did on grounding, if people called up my office and said, I think I'm having a heart attack, I would tell them to chew an aspirin, put their bare feet on the ground, and call an ambulance. I mean, there's lots of good things you can do to, chewing on omega-3s could possibly help. But, when you're dealing with a heart attack, time is of the essence. So you have to really, do things very, very quickly. Because when that blood flow stops in the heart, you need to restore blood flow as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Hey, how much do you think grounding actually thins the blood? Do we know how much?
Yeah, I did that research about 4 years ago, and I got to tell you, it was the greatest discovery I ever made in my life. I've been working with grounding for like 12 to 13 years, and we showed that grounding improves heart rate variability, and it helps to assuage the autonomic nervous system. But then I was speaking to my colleagues, and I said, if we can show that grounding thins the blood, this could be the greatest advance in cardiology that I've seen in my lifetime. So when we showed that grounding literally thins the blood up to 273% of the time, when we got the results back, it was amazing. And when I wrote the paper with my colleagues, I said, let's submit this to major cardiovascular journals because, I review for journals. I'm an editor, and I thought that this discovery was so incredible that the conventional journals would take it. And to my chagrin, 8 journals that I sent it to all over the world didn't take it.
Really?
And and then I ended up sending it to the Alternative Medicine Journal, which took it immediately because they thought it was phenomenal. And then I'll never forget it. I was on the phone with a Swedish researcher by the name of Ali Johansson, and he was laughing and laughing. He said, he knew about our study, and he burst out laughing. I go, what are you laughing about, Ali? I mean, this is serious. It was like heartbreak for me. He goes, he said to me, look, you're going to be dead and buried, and they'll probably offer you the Nobel Prize for that research, but nobody's going to accept it now. So at least he made me feel good, because he was a solid researcher from, Scandinavia. So.
Oh my gosh, that's like a prophet's not without honor in his own country.
That's okay. I mean, I've dealt with that with coenzyme Q10 my entire lifetime. So, but grounding and Q10, I got to say, are probably my 2 greatest discoveries when it comes to healing the heart.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We have those grounding sheets, those ones you can put on your bed, and I like using those a lot. And I'm spending more and more time outside, grounded with my bare foot on the ground.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. It's I don't know. There's something that it's like you can't quantify it. It just feels really good and feels right, but you don't really know why. But
I can tell you why.
Yeah.
I mean, I walk in leather shoes, and I walk to a coffee shop, and sometimes I walk barefoot, weather permitting. And the other times I'll walk on leather because, leather will conduct the Earth's surface. But when you walk barefoot, what you're doing is you're taking in Mother Earth energy, and we call it the Schumann effect. And basically, lightning strikes the Earth thousands of times a minute, especially at the equator. But here in the Northeast, it strikes it a lot. Where I live in Tampa, by the way, in Florida for half the year.
Oh, I bet.
And when you go outside and you assume the grounded position, whether you're walking barefoot on grass or on concrete, the beach is the best thing. I can tell you that. I mean, if you walk in the sandy surf, that's awesome. And what you're doing is you're absorbing electrons into the what we call a K1 point of the foot. There's a special acupuncture point at the base of your foot, and when you absorb these electrons, it's literally like taking handfuls of antioxidants. And what the electrons are doing is it's assuaging what we call free radical oxidative stress. So I really believe that the more you earth, the less you'll delay the ravages of aging, the more antioxidant support you're going to get for your body. So we showed that you get better sleep, you get thinning of the blood, you get better regulation of the heart through heart rate variability. there's amazing things that happen with grounding, and again, like I said, it was one of my greatest discoveries.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. In terms of like atrial fibrillation, I was just thinking about when you were talking about grounding and the electrical stimulation and the negative ions coming up through the ground. Do you think that grounding could affect like electrical issues of the heart, like AFib?
It's a good question. This I do know. The opposite of grounding creates AFib. For example, we're seeing a lot of atrial fibrillation. It's almost epidemic in the country right now. I mean, I get calls from my colleagues, and people are sensitive to invisible energies. See, what you can't feel, see, or touch still affects us. And we live in a wireless age, and computers, Wi-Fi, cordless phones, not corded phones. Like I'm speaking to you on a corded phone right now.
Nice.
And I also have a grounded, and at my computer, I have a grounded mat that I put my bare feet on. I'm barefoot right now talking to you.
Oh, nice.
And I'm grounded. But, people don't realize that, but the electrical age we live in, this computerized age, this creates haphazard waves, which could really drive people into atrial fibrillation. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I have seen who, got a new cordless phone or were talking on a cell phone, and they developed skipped heartbeats, and they ended up going to the emergency room with atrial fibrillation. So, there's a lot of causes of atrial fibrillation, but I got to believe that wireless technologies, in a susceptible person, an elderly person, a person whose conduction systems are seem to be more vulnerable, it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So when it comes to the wireless, Justin, less is more. Believe me.
Yeah.
Our protoplasm is not used to wireless technology. So I always, when I'm on radio shows or TV, I always plead with people to, try to cut down on the wireless in your life.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. There was a guy that really made me think a while back, and his name is Dr. Let's see, what was his name? I think it's Samuel Milham, and I think he's somewhere out here in California. And anyway, what he was saying about grounding, and I want to get your opinion about this because you're much more an expert than I am. But what he was saying was that he's sort of traveled the country. I think he was like an electrician as well. Yep. And he traveled the country and he would do soil testing and test all of this dirty electricity that's supposedly coming up off the ground. And what he was saying was that the grounding didn't push off it, and it brought in dirty electricity into people's bodies. Do you think that's true?
To an extent, he's right. I mean, my colleagues don't believe it. But I will tell you this: if you ground next to let's say, a power station that's driving electricity into the ground. For example, they wanted to build a basketball court in my town here next to a grounding, an electrical station.
Oh, right.
And I fought it tooth and nail because, I just feel that, why play recreational sports, next to an area that's discharging electricity into the ground?
Yeah, right.
Now, a lot of my colleagues will tell me that the earth trumps everything because the ground of the earth is so large. But, I tend to go both ways here. I would say this. If you live very close to, a grounded station, or all these electrical stations that are, in these different towns and cities, I'm not a big proponent of grounding, on or next to an electrical station.
Right.
However, if you have several, let's say, miles away. No, not even miles. I would say several hundred yards away. I would think it's perfectly okay to ground. Now, I will tell you this. The same thing is true of high tension wires. Sometimes a house is out in the woods, so to speak, and all of a sudden, it's by these Godzilla-like towers, these wires that are cut through woods. If you're within 800 feet of high tension wires, that EMF, I think, will affect you. And we've seen it, how it shuts off melatonin and how children are more susceptible to leukemia, when they live near very, very high-tension wires. So I think, some of these grounded guys, these electricians, I think they bring something to the table. I don't agree with them 100%, But I think people need to be cautious. So if you live near a grounded station, I wouldn't take off my shoes and walk barefoot near a grounded station or near high-tension wires for that matter.
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit selective. But again, 99.9% of the Earth doesn't have this. So, most of the areas that we live in the Earth are fine. But if you're near an adjacent area, I would use some caution.
It's cool that you're a part of the Canadian coalition and you're trying to help keep the Wi-Fi. I was reading about that on your website. Help keep Wi-Fi out of the schools.
I almost spoke before the Canadian Parliament. There was an incident in the Simcoe School District, Justin, which really bothered me. There were 4 children there who died. They had sudden death. They had ventricular fibrillation.
Oh, wow.
2 of them they were able to resuscitate, and they lived. But they lost 2, and they aged from 9 to like 13. Mm. And when they were building the schools there, they used industrial cinder block, which is a good thing. But however, they had the Wi-Fi in the schools, and it was penetrating 18 inches of cinder block. And some of these students, because I spoke to some of their parents, because I was lecturing up there in Ontario, and some of these students were complaining to their moms and dads that they had jitteriness, they had headache, they had palpitations, their heart was racing. And unfortunately, some of the students, 4 of them, they had what we call hidden bypass tracks. They had like unknown problems with their heart, and it's like the perfect storm. You take somebody who has a vulnerable conduction system on their heart that they're not in touch with, and you put them in a situation where there's horrific Wi-Fi, or if it's penetrating 18 inches of cinder block, what's it doing to our protoplasm?
I know, that's crazy. 18 inches.
So, the Canadian Parliament, I think, was a few votes short of getting it out of the schools. But,
wow.
There's movement going on. I mean, in Paris, they got out Wi-Fi, in Denmark, I think even Iran. I mean, I think there's pockets. Japan is looking at this. I mean, Korea. I mean, there's pockets of the world where they're looking at, some of the deleterious effects of wireless technologies.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to get to 5G now. Is that right?
Yeah, this is a little scary. And there was and so you live in California, and there's a bill out there right now, and I know some of my colleagues in the wireless field who are really smart. Like chairman of departments of medicine, of pediatrics and stuff in San Diego and other areas of California. Internist cardiologists, they wrote letters to Governor Brown, and the problem is, everybody wants technology. They can't live without it, and they want faster and faster stuff. But there's a downside to the human body. I mean, I really believe that. As long as as well as some of my colleagues. So I just hope we look before we leap in these situations.
I know, it's so disturbing, like you're saying, with kids that are, their skulls aren't completely formed, and so it's just, man, I don't know what to think about what's going to happen to all these kids, Well, when I see a 5-year-old or less on a cell phone, and I'm at an airport and I see a parent, I'll walk up to the parent and I'll just, some people tell me to mind my own business, but I just feel like it's an obligation, and I'll tell a parent, did you know that some of the wireless technologies can penetrate the skull of a 5-year-old and go right to his brain? And and so most people thank me, but occasionally I get mind your own business and blah blah blah, which is okay. I mean, I don't need to be right, but the problem is some of these young children, they're unknowingly hurting themselves. Gosh, that's good information, right? Don't you think? Dr. Sinatra is an awesome, awesome guy, and make sure to check out his website, Dr. Sinatra, drsinatra.com. I don't know, I'll have to ask him about this later, but, I've been doing the Relax Far Infrared Sauna lately quite often, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this sauna that we sell in our store. It is absolutely incredible. We've had ours for about 5 years, and I just love the thing. We use it twice a day because my wife and I both use it every single day. So it is incredibly durable. I think they've had the motors running in Thailand. I think that's where they actually put these things together for like 5 years, and it has never turned off. It's very low EMF. The electrical frequencies that come off of any sort of motor, on this, it only comes up about 2 feet off about a foot off the ground, so it doesn't really affect you. And it's portable, it's far infrared, so what's cool is that it heats up right away. What's cool is that the thing heats up right away. I love it. I watch documentaries in there. I spend about 30 minutes a day in there, and I watch documentaries, and I learn so much. It's such a great little oasis, kind of a me time where I get to just be by myself and watch a documentary and sit in the sauna. It's incredible. So if you guys are unfamiliar with sauna therapy and what it can do for you, go to extremehealthradio.com/sauna and you'll learn more about it there. Just an awesome piece of equipment, probably my most favorite piece of equipment that we have. And then the other thing that we have is this IMRS mat. I don't know if you guys are familiar with PEMF technology. So PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, and what it does is it pulses these electrical energy into your body, and that's what PEMF is. And we've done a few shows about the power of PEMF, what it does to cell membranes, what it does to help oxygenate the cell. PEMF is used in almost all the alternative cancer and natural healing centers around the world. And we love this IMRS mat. It's a low frequency one, and I use it every single night, and I'll combine it usually with my Rife machine, but it is just an awesome mat. And if you want to listen to the shows that we've done all about what PEMF is, how it can benefit you, and what exactly it does inside the body, there's some videos in our store. One of them is from the Dr. Oz show, and you can check that out. But we've done shows with Bryant Myers, and he's the one, if you purchase a PEMF device like this IMRS 2000 mat, you'll go through Bryant Myers, and he's just a really cool guy. So I just love these things. These things are helping us improve our health and really take our health to new levels. And so the sweating and the sauna, sometimes I'll go from the sauna to the PEMF mat and back and forth. It's just an awesome way to detoxify your body and get your body working in tip-top shape. So if you want to learn more about PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, as well as sauna therapy, just go to the show page for this particular page, which is extremehealthradio.com/554. Yeah, it's sad too, because I'll go out for a walk or something, and I'll see women with their cell phones right on their breast, and holding it there, kind of. And man, you kind of just notice that in passing, and so you can't say anything. But it's just it's sad that more people don't know about all this stuff.
Well, there are cases on record. There's case reports in the medical literature where if a woman puts a cell phone in her bra, and some women put it there. There have been tumors outlining the cellular phone right around it. That's amazing, So unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is not talked about. But it's something. I mean, listen, we all need cell phones. I mean, I'm not throwing cell phones under the bed, believe me. Or under the bus, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, we all need this stuff, but there's a way of being productive without being self-destructive. And when I speak on a cell phone, I usually put it on speaker, and I put it 2 or 3 feet away from my body, and I'll talk on speaker. And I'm talking to you right now on a wired phone. I use wired phones.
Nice, I love that.
So, it's just being productive without being self-destructive, and if we can all follow that, and it's more convenient to talk on a cordless phone. I realize that, but I think cordless phones are going to be outlawed in the next decade. I really do. Yeah,
they're so strong. I mean, some studies are showing that it's stronger than cell phones.
No, it's like having a radiation antenna in your home.
Yeah, it's
like having a microwave oven going off in your home all the time.
Yeah, you think they'll ban them?
I think, I just think there's so much negativity towards them that, I really think that something's got to give here.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Yeah, because all of this technology, I mean, it comes at a cost. It
does.
But the problem is that no one can see that cost until a few years later or decades later, and so it's challenging in that way.
And there's many perfect storms. I mean, even my own nurse in my office, she died of a brain tumor, and she was with me for 30 years.
Wow.
When I went out to her house, she had a microwave oven in her kitchen, and she had a cordless phone in the kitchen. And she also lived in an area where there was a lot of electricity coming into the house from high-tension wires. So, again, it's the perfect storm. But when I went to her house after she passed, and I stood in her kitchen, and I tested her kitchen with some of my Wi-Fi devices that pick up the wireless.
Mm-hmm.
There was a spot in her kitchen that if she was on a cell phone, her cordless phone, and was cooking in the kitchen and had the microwave on at the same time, she was getting so much radiation. My senses were going off the charts.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, way off the charts. I couldn't even measure it.
Wow.
So again, that's just the perfect storm. And see, the problem is we can't see, feel, or taste. Although some people are very sensitive to Wi-Fi and like I am, for example. I have a prosthetic hip, and I have metal in my body, and
right.
I mean, sometimes that's a blessing. I can feel it, and I I'll tend to try to determine where it's coming from, but a lot of people can't tolerate Wi-Fi, and they don't understand why.
Yeah, it's really an epidemic, and like we're saying, 5G is coming out. I mean, human progress and human innovation is just one of those things where we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So at some point, it's going to be 15G, it's going to be 16G, so we really got to figure out how to navigate all this stuff,
Absolutely, and I'll tell you one thing. Let's see, 50 years ago, there was one child that was autistic in maybe 10,000. Now it's like 1 in 47 males.
Isn't it nuts?
This is something horrific, The other thing that bothers me a lot is male sterility.
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 years ago, male sterility was very rare. Now it's very, very common. I mean, and why? I mean, a lot of males will put a cell phone in their front pocket, and within 2 hours, your sperm production goes down 400%. There's documentation on this and studies on it.
Wow.
And when I see men, putting their cell phones in their front trousers, it really, really frightens me, So, yeah, I mean, if you want to think, science fiction and think about what could happen, 50, 20, 30, 100 years from now, it's kind of scary, I'll tell you the truth.
I know, it's pretty scary. I want to ask you about coenzyme Q10 in 1 second, but selfishly, while I have you on the phone, I don't know if you heard over the music at the beginning, but when I was about 15, I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Right.
And I believe that was the same sort of condition that a lot of those athletes were dying in the mid-90s. And so I was curious. I was told by doctors, maybe 10 years ago that's possible to outgrow that. And that was, about when I started to change my diet and lifestyle. And I'm wondering your thoughts about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. I
mean, the important thing here is that some people have it and they don't even know it, I'll tell you one quick story. One of the first cases I saw about it was about 40 years ago when I just got my boards in cardiology. I saw a police officer who had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and he was chasing some burglars, and he had his gun drawn. And he was running down the street, and then all of a sudden, shots were being fired at him, and he crouched behind a car.
Wow.
And when he crouched behind a car, when you have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and you squat, and he had a severe case of it, he ended up passing out.
Oh, wow.
And we know from, squatting, if you have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, that's what we call hemodynamically significant. In other words, it distorts blood flow inside the left ventricle. And with the squatting episode, he cut off his blood supply, and, he woke up and everything, and he ended up seeing me in the office. But I'll never forget that case because it was so dramatic, Wow. I mean, I had cases of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy that was totally asymptomatic, and I had cases like this that were provoked by, simply squatting and being under, severe emotional stress. The important thing with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is that if the septum is growing continuously and it's obliterating the left ventricle, and we can determine this by echocardiography. I'm sure you had an echo on your heart.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the deal about having serial echoes maybe once every year or once every 2 to 3 years is really where it's at, because if the pressures in the heart become compromised significantly, where it puts you at risk, sometimes they'll do invasive procedures, and they might use what we call ultrasound or even surgery for that matter to reduce some of the intramuscular mass in the septum, so it gives you a cleaner outflow of blood, into the aorta. So there's a lot of good procedures right now to deal with this, but again, a lot of people are asymptomatic. I mean, some people are symptomatic, and sometimes people have to modify their lifestyle when they have it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But what about yourself? Are you symptomatic or asymptomatic? Any shortness of breath? Anything like any chest pain? Any arrhythmias? Anything you're aware of?
Yeah, no. As soon as I changed my diet back in 2003, I mean, ever since then, it's been totally fine. No symptoms. I'm not short of breath. I work out a lot. I exercise. I ground, a lot, and take care of myself, supplements and things. And so, yeah, I mean, so far it's been pretty great. No side effects at all. Yeah,
it's just great. You see a cardiologist once every few years, and get an ultrasound. You're followed by a cardiologist. You see a heart specialist?
Yeah. I was I haven't been to a heart doctor in a few years, but I should probably start going back and just getting checked on, probably.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Just get an ultrasound every few years, just to make sure the muscle in the septum isn't continuously expanding, and that's all.
Okay. Yeah. And
that's what I would do.
I know what was happening with me was I was fainting during practice and sprints and stuff like that. And as you can imagine, in the early 90s when you're 15 and your mom, and all these other people, these athletes are dying.
Yeah.
It's like, I got diagnosed really quick.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a wrestler, high school wrestler in my practice, and I used to wrestle myself in college. So I know how strenuous that can be. And he passed out in a wrestling match. And, when we got him, we realized he had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and unfortunately, I had to, take him out of wrestling, which was a heartbreak to him.
Oh man, I know.
But it's one of those things. It just, that's the one thing that we don't like to have hypertrophic cardiomyopathies in competitive sports. That's the problem.
Now, I read something years ago. This just came up in terms of this condition and people being on medication. I know that. Hank Gathers, you're probably familiar with him, the college basketball star that passed away and passed out in the middle of a game with this condition. And what some people were saying was that the medication he was on to prevent heart attacks and prevent heart failure during the time he dies is actually what's causing the condition to get to a point where he dies. And so a lot of people were warning about the medications that they have people on for this condition.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, medications can have a bright side and a dark side. There's no question. And the worst medications that I used were in patients in the coronary care unit who had ventricular arrhythmia, and we had to assuage the arrhythmia, so to speak. And unfortunately, some of the medications we used were pro-arrhythmic. In other words, even though they would cancel out the arrhythmia, while we were first administering it, we would get a pro-arrhythmic effect with some of them, and I used to have my heart in my throat, to be honest with you.
Oh, my gosh.
So, I mean, lots of medications are good, but some of them can be pro-arrhythmic, and what I would always try to do in my practice was to try to use as less, pharmaceutical medications as possible, and I tried to use more natural forms of therapy, which, didn't have what we call the side effects or the downside.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these individuals.
Yeah, that's great. But I wanted to ask you about cholesterol, reducing high blood pressure, how to clean out your arteries, and maybe your top 5 nutrients for your heart. So as far as cholesterol, what are the top ways if someone actually does have, because that's a debatable thing, cholesterol, the number. But if someone does have high cholesterol, for example, just assuming that, what would be 5 ways that you would want to see that person lower that number?
Yeah, I mean, I would preface that. I mean, first of all, one of the reasons why I wrote The Great Cholesterol Myth with Johnny Bowden, he's a California guy, by the way, was the fact that for years I used to believe in a cholesterol theory of heart disease. And I used to believe in statins. Now, I still believe in statins, by the way, especially with men with coronary disease.
Okay.
I don't give statins to young children, the elderly, or women.
Mm-hmm.
But, young men less than the age of 75 who have documented coronary disease, I'll use statins, not to lower the cholesterol number, which statins do, by the way.
Uh-huh.
But statins thin the blood. And I know that from my work on grounding, that thick blood, when your blood is like red ketchup, it predisposes you more to cardiovascular events.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that statins work, they're powerful antioxidants, and they're also very potent blood thinners as well. They do work in men, especially men who smoke, who tend to have very thick blood. That's why the West of Scotland study was one of the few favorable statin studies.
Mm.
But in treating high cholesterol, again, I'm not a big fan of lowering the cholesterol numbers. I mean, I do it,
mm-hmm.
Especially when they're real high. If you have if you have bad genetics, what we call a heterozygous hypercholesterolemia, when about 3% of the population has this, where they have really high cholesterol numbers, then they do have sludgy blood. And in those cases, especially if they're males, I'll use statin drugs. But basically, I try to lower cholesterol more naturally as opposed to using pharmaceuticals. Unless if you have documented coronary disease, and if you're a male, I'll use low-dose statins in combination with ways to assuage cholesterol. And what I really like is I like a Mediterranean diet. I've written about the Mediterranean diet. And, oh my gosh, most of my writing.
Wow.
I like the Pan-Asian diet as well, and there's a phrase I use. I call it the PAM diet, the PAMM, Pan-Asian Modified Mediterranean.
Oh, nice.
Where I take the best foods of the Mediterranean and the best foods of the Orient, and I combine them together. And like for example, a good quality soy, a non-GMO soy,
uh-huh.
Does a good job. Seaweeds that the Orientals eat are phenomenal for the heart. Not only do they take out radiation because of alginates, but they have a lot of good properties in seaweeds. For example, now the Mediterraneans don't eat seaweeds, but they eat a lot of olive oil, and so do the Asians.
Mm-hmm.
And olive oil, I feel, is the secret sauce of the Mediterranean diet. I mean, what olive oil does, it defies my imagination. There are more 100-year-old people in the Mediterranean basin than all over the world, and I think the common denominator is olive oil. I really do. Because if you look at what olive oil does, it changes what we call a pro-inflammatory gene structure. In other words, if you're dealt a bad set of genes and they're pro-inflammatory,
uh-huh.
well, olive oil can make those pro-inflammatory genes less inflammatory. We only learned about that about 7 or 8 years ago in the medical literature.
Wow.
So, when I look at my top ways to lower cholesterol, there's no doubt about it. The Mediterranean diet is
uh-huh.
great. And what is it about the Mediterranean diet? Well, first of all, it contains olive oil, like I mentioned. But what it also contains is a lot of fiber. So once you take a lot of fiber in a diet, and you eat a lot of plants, a lot of vegetables, the Mediterraneans flavor their sauces with meat, but they don't eat chunks of meat like we do, for example. In this country, we eat chunks of meat, beef and stuff like that. Mediterraneans flavor their sauces with meat. So do the Asians as well. And basically, if you do a higher protein diet with less carbohydrates, less sugars, it's less inflammatory, it's less insulin-provoking. So my favorite diet is, like I said, the Pan-Asian Modified Mediterranean diet. You can take out the pizzas. I'm still a big proponent of pastas, but I like the higher protein pastas, the lentil pastas, the pea pastas, the chickpea pastas that have like 15 grams of serving of protein per serving, as opposed to the higher carbohydrate pastas that only have 7 grams of protein per serving. So if you can do the high protein pastas, I'm a big fan of using the Mediterranean diet. So fiber is key. If we can get fiber up to 30 or 40 grams a day, I love it, instead of the typical 10 or 15. Garlic and onions, which are a staple of the Mediterranean diet, is a way to lower cholesterol naturally in the body. Both garlic and onions do this. There's multiple studies that show, garlic and onions are awesome in reducing cholesterol. I mentioned olive oil. What olive oil does is It takes small particle LDL, which is more inflammatory, and it makes it fluffier.
Oh, wow,
in other words,
really?
it changes the configuration of LDL. It
Interesting.
also improves HDL.
Okay.
So olive oil brings an enormous amount to the table. At Vervana.com, that's my food website, I use my own California olive oils.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you, you're from California, so I should mention this. But if you get certified by the California Growers Association, they'll certify your olive oil as being 100% extra virgin. And the reason why I say that is lots of olive oils coming out of Europe that aren't 100% extra virgin.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you know this or not. I mean,
No.
It was in Time magazine. It was on 60 Minutes. I mean, there's multiple olive oils coming out of Europe that are cut with canola oil.
Oh,
and,
wow.
if it's cut with 75% extra virgin, it can be declared 100% extra virgin. And, I'm an olive oil freak. I'll be the first. I mean, my last name's Sinatra, but I eat olive oil every day.
Wow.
And I go through bottles like crazy. That's why I offer it on my website, Vervana.com, because I think olive oil brings an enormous amount to the table.
You know what, Doc? I do a lot of oils, but I haven't been doing olive oil for probably the last 6 months. What's the name of your website?
It's Vervana, VERVANA.com. And,
Vervana, okay. I'll put a link
my
to that.
favorite products on my website are not only olive oil, but I have a non-GMO, all-organic, red marinara sauce.
Oh, really?
And you're from California, so you know what California Prop 65 is, right?
Yes.
Well, when I had my olive oil tested at a facility, we use a green facility in Ohio, and I use organic, non-GMO tomatoes, all imported from Italy. And by the way, the tomatoes that come from Italy, they all come in cans, so I was worried about BPA. Are you familiar with BPA?
Oh, yeah.
Bisphenol A.
Uh-huh.
So I had my tomatoes tested for bisphenol A, and I was negative, which I really appreciated. And then I went through, I passed California Prop 65 on lead and mercury, which I was very, delighted with.
Uh-huh.
And, I put my pasta sauce through incredible scrutiny. And, people who I knew, they said, what are you doing that for? You're crazy, because nothing's going to come out 100% safe, and then you're going to not want to eat it. And I said, listen, I have my pasta sauce 2 or 3 times a week. I want to make sure it's safe.
I know, if you're going to eat it, right?
I do. So, it's lower in carbohydrates. It has higher olive oil in it. I put extra garlic in it. I put capsaicin in it. You asked a question about capsaicin.
Uh-huh.
But it's not a spicy marinara. It has a little bit of a twinge, But, I wanted all these heart-healthy ingredients, like biopurine is in pepper, for example.
Uh-huh. And
all the ingredients are organic. They come from Italy. And I was delighted that I passed California Prop 65, and, it's BPA-free, all organic, GMO-free. And that's why, my pasta sauce and my olive oil are my biggest sellers. And then I tried to find a pasta, so I'm getting a pasta from Italy that's non-GMO,
uh-huh.
And gluten-free as well. So that's why I'm using the red lentil high-protein pasta.
Oh, that sounds so good.
You don't want to get a big insulin response.
No.
Because, who needs to gain weight? Who needs to get fat?
I know.
You don't want to do that, especially if you're like me when you eat pasta 2 or 3 times a week. But if you eat, high-protein pastas, it's like getting higher protein, and you won't get the insulin response.
Oh, this is great. I'm gonna share this website with our people. This is really cool.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I just see, that's my next. It's one of my newer desires and passions in the workplace.
Uh-huh.
Finding healthy food in America today is going to be one of the biggest challenges of our century. It really is.
Oh, I know.
The GMO wheat. There's so much going on right now that, and I mentioned it before. We all need to be productive without being self-destructive, and a lot of it's unknowing. We don't really know, and it's just important that the foods we put into our body. And as a heart specialist, I can tell you that. Whatever you put in your body is going to affect you, and that's why I always preach less sugar, less salt, more
mm-hmm.
this, more that, and so I'm a big fan of healthy eating. It's the number one thing to improve not only our brain power, also our cardiac situation and longevity as well. If we eat healthy, less inflammatory foods, we'll have a better productive life. There's no question about it.
And the cool thing is that it's something that we do not only just every day, but 3 times a day. So if you mess up, you still got 2 more chances to get it right, you know?
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you about reducing high blood pressure. That's an issue that is, my gosh, like so many people are dealing with that. My brother, people in our family, and you hear about it every single day. What are your top ways to do that, do you think?
Well, again, I mean, I believe the wireless is going to be a factor here as well. Again, grounding to me is going to be awesome. We did a study on grounding and high blood pressure, and it doesn't actually. Dr. Howard Elkin, a cardiologist and a board-certified cardiologist in Anaheim, helped me with this study. And I just believe that grounding is going to be really important, as a way of reducing blood pressure, because I think the wireless is really stimulating the autonomic nervous system. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to blood pressure, there's a lot of things we can do. Sure, we can get grounded. We can get away from a lot of the wireless. We can, get Ethernet in our homes, for example. Speak on wired phone. That's giving less on cellular phones on the body. But when it comes to blood pressure, I think loss of weight is the most important thing. If you're overweight, a loss of a mere 5 or 10 pounds will make all the difference in the world. So weight loss is actually very, very important when it comes to supporting blood pressure. I love omega-3s, fish oil. I'm a big fan of squid oil. I mean, the Healthy Directions, the supplements I do is we use squid oil because a squid only lives in the ocean for about 450 days. I worry about larger fish when it comes to omega-3s. I worry about contamination, petrochemicals and mercury and that stuff. That's why I switched to squid oil over fish oil. I mean, I still like fish oil. I'm not throwing it under the bus by any means. But when it comes to omega-3s, I also like more DHA, which squid oil has to offer over fish oil. Remember, DHA gets involved in more the retina of the eye, the heart, and the brain. And for me, if I'm dealing with arthritis, I like EPA. So maybe krill oil might have a little bit of advantage over arthritis. But when it comes to the brain, the heart, and the eyes, I'm all in on DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, because, I prefer DHA over EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid. So omega-3s is part of my reducing blood pressure program. I couldn't practice effective cardiology without coenzyme Q10. I absolutely love it. I mean, I'm doing a monograph now for the CoQ10 Association. I got to tell you, CoQ10 is one of my greatest discoveries, along with grounding. Those are my 2 greatest discoveries in my 40-plus years of being an MD.
So what is CoQ10? What's it doing? Like, why is it so great?
It does multiple things. I mean, the most important thing about CoQ10 is a membrane stabilizer. And we know from anti-aging medicine that the sine qua non of aging is membrane disruption, where when membranes age, they leak. You've heard of leaky gut, right? Probably interviewed health professionals about it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when the cellular membranes leak and they're more prone to oxidative stress, they're more prone to the effects of LDL, for example, and cholesterol and petrochemicals and radiation. So when you have a stable cellular membrane, this is sort of a deterrent to protecting the cell. And CoQ10 is an incredible membrane stabilizer. And that's one of the earlier aspects of CoQ10 that I learned, 35 years ago when I started using it in the early 1980s. CoQ10 is a really potent antioxidant. It's incredible. And the reason why it works so well in the heart is that it has a terrific, what we call bioenergetic effect. In other words, it supports the production of ATP, which is the energy of life. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why I wrote the book Metabolic Cardiology, because, CoQ10 just does so many things right for the body.
Wow.
And that's why it's instrumental in supporting the heart. I have so many cases on record where people needed heart transplants, and, they went on metabolic cardiology, which includes CoQ10, ribose, magnesium, and the carnitines. And there's so many people I reversed with very low ejection fractions who were doomed to go to heart transplantation, who actually on metabolic cardiology actually reversed themselves. So
wow.
I really like, in addition to loss of weight, omega-3s, and CoQ10 for lowering blood pressure. Magnesium is part of my awesome foursome as well. And magnesium not only, is involved in, let's say, 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, but magnesium helps to drive blood pressure numbers down as well. And then my two other favorites are garlic and hawthorn. Have you heard of hawthorn berry?
Yeah. I didn't know that was good for the heart.
Oh, yeah, because hawthorn berry as well as garlic have what we call ACE inhibiting activity. They're almost like using ACE inhibitors, like pharmaceutical drugs. And I really like hawthorn. I used it like 500 milligrams 3 times a day in my patients with high blood pressure. And because a lot of my patients with high blood pressure would come to me and they would say, can I get off drugs? And, lots of times if they had mild, sometimes moderate hypertension, I could get them off all their drugs. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you this, Justin. I mean, if I can't get a person off a drug, I'll continue the drug because, they call high blood pressure the silent killer for a reason. It weakens the heart. There's no question. And over time, so if I can't get the blood pressure down with nutraceuticals, I will use some degree of pharmaceutical support.
Yeah, I've heard also too. I don't know if your research has shown this or not, but there's some people who've been talking about the connection between high blood pressure. Now, I don't have any idea how this would work in the body, but some of these people were saying that people that are very, very high in heavy metals have high blood pressure, and it's the heavy metals. And he explained how it raises the blood pressure. But have you seen any correlation there?
Oh yeah. Mercury has been shown to, not only cause blood pressure lowering, it may cause cardiomyopathy in the heart. It was, I think it was published in the American Journal of Cardiology several years ago.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, people eating a lot of fish in Finland and Scandinavia had high mercury levels. Freshwater fish. Mm-hmm. Heavy metals has been known to do this. So, I mean, it's just important, to be privy to this information. That's why, I get more worried about the environment as time goes on.
Mm-hmm. Something that I was thinking about the other day that most people don't think about is, like, if you live next to a freeway, there's tire dust and the amount of
cadmium in tires. You're right, and lead in gasoline. You're right.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, even not. I mean, a lot of the gasolines are non-leaded, but it can be rough out there. I mean, one of the reasons why I like vitamin E so much, broad spectrum tocopherol, is that it helps protect the lungs. And you live in California, where there's smog and there's cadmium going in the atmosphere from the burning of tires. That's what tires do. Well, whenever I come and in the Northeast we have that as well. Whenever we're at a traffic jam, when I'm at a toll collector's booth, I feel like slipping him some vitamin E at the same time I'm paying my toll. Because vitamin E does protect, against some of these aspects of air pollution.
Yeah. It's just so many things we have to take into consideration living in 2017. I wanted to ask you, moving on a little bit to the awesome foursome that you talked about, and I kind of have here on my notes, 5 nutrients for your heart, but you have some really cool products that you haven't even mentioned. They're on your site, drsinatra.com. But what are some of the top 5 or so nutrients you think for the heart?
I like so many things for the heart, but I would have to say that coenzyme Q10 is my top. For the reasons I mentioned, ATP support, membrane stabilization, and I believe Q10 is one of the best anti-aging nutrients around. Omega-3s, like I mentioned before. Remember, if you're taking in squid oil or fish oil, and it gets inside plaque, and a lot of us have plaque, we don't know it, it can prevent plaque rupture. In other words, one of the reasons why eating 1 or 2 fish meals per month can reduce the incidence of sudden death 30 to 50% of the time. And this is incredible, reducing sudden death.
Wow.
Is because when you have a fish meal and you're taking in omega-3, you're making the plaque less vulnerable to plaque rupture. And when that happens, you're stabilizing plaque, and a lot of us have plaque in our vessels that we don't know. And that's why I like omega-3. So if I was ever on a desert island, I would want to have at least a couple cases of CoQ10 and omega-3s to be washed ashore.
Yeah.
Now, my third pick My third draft pick would be vitamin K2, metaquinone 7. I'm a big fan of vitamin K2 because vitamin K2, I believe, can reverse plaque. In other words, it can, if you take it as a supplement, and they showed this in a Rotterdam study in Denmark. And I met the two researchers who developed a lifetime of their research on vitamin K2. I met them at Yale New Haven here in the Northeast.
Oh, wow.
And basically, vitamin K2 is awesome. That's why I brought it to Healthy Directions about 10 years ago. I mean, I take 300 micrograms a day every day. I just believe it's one of the best things in addition to CoQ10 and omega-3 for the heart. But vitamin K2, I believe, will reverse plaque. And it's been shown, in clinical studies, if you eat foods that are high in vitamin K2, like certain hard cheeses, you get less calcification of the aorta. Another one of my favorite nutrients is astaxanthin. Are you familiar with that one, Justin?
Oh, yeah. I used to take that. I've been off it for a few months. But
I love it. I love it. In fact, one of my nutrients at Healthy Directions, Vitality C, it's a combination of seaweeds and it has, I put 6 milligrams of astaxanthin in it, and I double dose on it. I have some iodine in it because I think a lot of Americans are shortchanged on iodine because of the salts we use. They're not iodinized salts. And the average Japanese, they eat a lot of seaweed, they take in 15, 20 times the iodine that we take in, and their incidence of thyroid disease is much less compared to what we have in America today. So I'm a big fan of astaxanthin, and that's why I featured it in Vitality C, one of my supplements on Healthy Directions, because I just love that nutrient. I mean, I just take it every day. Another nutrient I like is lycopene. Are you familiar with lycopene?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, and, lycopene is getting more and more play because, and that's one of the reasons why I developed my own spaghetti sauce. We talked about that before from Italy because, lycopene prevents the oxidation of LDL. And I'll say something else on the air because I feel that one of the best combinations to take is lycopene and broccoli. Broccoli, as a green vegetable, contains sulforaphane. Are you familiar with that, Justin?
I am, yeah, the sulfur.
Yeah, it's a phytonutrient. And when my daughter-in-law developed breast cancer several years ago, I researched the Internet, and I came up with the lycopene-sulforaphane combination. And I'll tell you, every time she comes to the house and I cook for her, not only do I give her my pasta sauce, but I make her broccoli at the same time. Because the combination of lycopene in tomato sauce and sulforaphane in broccoli has been shown in clinical studies to really deter, breast cancer. So, that's something for your listeners to really take to the bank. And I know in my daughter-in-law, it's something that I just feel like it's really helped her. So, those are my top 5 nutrients for the heart: CoQ10, omega-3, vitamin K2, astaxanthin, and lycopene.
I love it. Now, with the lycopene, do you know if it's true, if all that stuff going around years ago was true about whether you have to eat the tomatoes raw or there's more lycopene if you cook it?
It's cook it, yeah. Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think tomato sauce, a non-GMO organic tomato sauce, and people can find those, I'm sure, in supermarkets if they read labels carefully, is really the way to go.
Yeah, I just love a tomato sauce. I didn't know that you had your own. This is great, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, people have told me I'm crazy to get into the food business, but I just feel that I think healthy food is going to be the challenge of our century. I really do. So that's why I did it.
So I wanted to ask you before we go, you mentioned Healthy Directions, but you also have your own site. Or is everything on your site, or where should we send people if they want to get some?
Well, I have multiple websites. Vervana.com is my go-to site for healthy foods and healthy living. I mean, I'm a big proponent of high vibrational living. That's the lecture I give throughout the country right now. In fact, I call it 70 is the new 50. Basically.
I love it.
Because I'm 71, and I just feel like if you practice a good, healthy lifestyle, especially with diet and supplements and mind-body interactions, 70 can become the new 50. And this probably, it's going to be my next book.
I like that.
But Healthy Directions is my go-to site for vitamins and minerals. Vervana is for food, and then HeartMDInstitute.com. I got a ton of information on healthy lifestyle, healthy eating, and stuff like that.
Okay, HeartMD Institute.
Institute.com.
Okay, cool. And then you also run Dr. Sinatra, drsinatra.com.
Yeah, drsinatra.com is my Healthy Directions site where, vitamins and minerals and supplements. I've been developing supplements for like almost 2.5 decades. And,
wow, this is great.
You know why I did this, Justin?
Why?
Back in the early 90s, I couldn't find supplements that were good for my patients because a lot of them had too much copper and they had iron,
really?
multiple vitamins for men. And I said, wait a minute. And a lot of them had too much beta-carotene. And I said, well, not enough, tocotrienols. I said, wait a minute, something's got to give here. So I started developing my own supplements,
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's great. Yeah, if people are interested, Dr. Sinatra, Dr. Sinatra, I'll put a link. You got some really cool, because you can drill down between like blood pressure, energy, cholesterol, immune system, anti-aging, all kinds of stuff. Oh,
are you on Vervana.com or HeartMD?
I'm on just drsinatra.com.
Yeah, and a lot of that is on HeartMD. That's Dr. Sinatra, yeah. And then if you want more information, you can always go to Vervana or HeartMDInstitute.com.
Your sauces and your honey look so good on Vervana. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Honey
cool.
brings a lot to the table. I mean, people should not be using white table sugar. At least at honey, you're going to get some minimal protein. You're going to get some antioxidant support. And remember, the bee pollen of antiquity of the Greek athletes was really something that I think made a difference in athleticism. So, honey, because of the energetics of the honeybee and taking in the energy of the sun, I think if you need a sweetener, if you've got to have a sweetener, small amounts of honey has a way over, table sugar. And small amounts of maple syrup is almost as equal.
Yeah, you're getting some good minerals, too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Doc. Well, I didn't want to
it was great talking to you, Justin.
Yeah.
And when your show gets up, can you send me a copy or can I listen to it or whatever?
Most definitely. I'll send you a link as soon as we've got it uploaded. Probably be a couple weeks from now. But
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
fine.
Doc.
Hey, thanks a lot.
I really appreciate it.
All right, God bless.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, here's a little snippet from our good friend Daniel Vitalis over at Sir Thrival, who we're very proud to be working with. But if you guys want to try out some of his famous and amazing colostrum, you may want to check this out.
So colostrum is the first food that all baby mammals receive, or all natural baby mammals receive. So when we were born, our mother's breasts were initially filled with colostrum before actually there was any milk available to us. And in an ideal circumstance, that's the first thing we drink. Well, the same is true for all mammals, and it's especially true for cows. One of the interesting things about bovine colostrum, cow colostrum, is it has a really unique impact on human health. This has been studied for a really long time. There are literally thousands of studies in the scientific literature showing the effects of bovine colostrum on human health, on human immunity, on restoring the gut lumen, the gut tract, repairing damage to the gut, and helping to restore health after things like IBS or Crohn's or diverticulitis or any of the sort of inflammatory bowel diseases. And it does this through a number of actions, but primarily through the fact that it contains all of the known mammalian growth factors. And these proteins that we call growth factors initiate growth in tissue throughout the body. And each type of tissue in our body has a specific growth factor. Well, they're all found in colostrum. And so one of the really wonderful things is that colostrum kind of goes throughout the body, unlocking growth keys, getting our body to produce new, fresh, healthy tissue everywhere. And that makes it really wonderful for people who are exercising, people who are looking for recovery, from people who are healing from past injuries or past surgeries or from a lifestyle that was detrimental to their health. This becomes an all-around really wonderful food for anybody who's looking for anti-aging type benefits and rejuvenation. And essentially, I think it's a really optimal food for just about everybody because it restores tissues on every level.
I love that. So as far as the casein or lactose, I know a lot of people have questions about that. Is there any casein or lactose in colostrum?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we tend to think of colostrum like it's a dairy product, but it's helpful to think of it really more as a product that's produced in the blood. And it fills into the mammary gland, and it's consumed the same way that milk will later be consumed, but it's not milk and it's not really a dairy product. There are trace amounts of lactose and casein that can be found there, but that are below the levels that trigger inflammatory issues or allergic reactions for most individuals. So people who are sensitive to casein and lactose are not, in most cases, ever sensitive to colostrum.
And if you guys want to grab some of this colostrum, I love this stuff. I combine it with the One World Whey we get from Stephen Hero over at Synergistic Nutrition. When you combine colostrum with One World Whey, it's so, so good. I use it in my smoothies and my coffee drink in the morning, my protein shakes after I work out. It just tastes so good together. So if you guys want to get any of Daniel Vitalis' products, actually, the deer velvet antler or the pine pollen for hormones or any of that kind of stuff over at Surthrival or the colostrum, you can visit the link for this particular page, which is extremehealthradio.com/554, and they're both available in our store as well. I have to say, I have been absolutely loving this product by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. If you want to listen to the interview we did with Tristan, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/127. And Qigong is a great way to de-stress the body. And as you know, there's a huge component to disease caused by stress. And stress is a huge factor in how we live our lives and the amount of energy we have and the amount of vitality we have. And so, Dr. Shade, what do you think about Qigong?
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity. And I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology, because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
And what about you, Kit Campbell? What do you think about Qigong? Do you like it as well?
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body, and just fantastic.
If you're interested in picking up this Qigong course by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar, go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. That's QIGONG. And you can learn more about it. There's a great video on that page, and you can learn more about it on that page. And I highly, highly recommend this product. I love it myself, so go ahead and check that out. extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. And there you go. Dr. Steven Sinatra. What do you guys think about that? Yeah, he's a cool guy. You know, I've been aware of his work for, a long time, and it takes us forever to get people on. You know, there's certain people that just are hard to get a hold of, and sometimes you reach out to them, and sometimes they don't reach back, and but it's not that they don't want to do the show; it's just that they're just busy. So I've known about Dr. Sinatra for years now, and so I'm really, really honored to have him back on the show. And what I think is so cool is that, I love the work that he's doing, helping people and educating people. And it's interesting because he still does have his medical license and he still does practice conventional cardiology, but he understands all of the stuff that natural people do. So he was saying, I'm not sure if we recorded this, but before the show, we said he said that he doesn't practice. I don't think he sees patients anymore, but you could probably contact them and get their supplements or get his supplements. I'll put a link if you guys want to check it out. Let me get the actual show number for this page. The link or the show number for today's show is 554. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/554, there will be links to all the stuff we talked about on today's show. Plus, I'll have links to the sponsors of today's show, so you can check that out as well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Pass it on to your friends, share it with people. I would appreciate that. If you know of anybody in your life that is dealing with some kind of heart issue, pass this show on. That would be really, really awesome for them to learn about, other solutions. Because sometimes, when you go to a conventional doctor, it can be very, there's not a lot of hope, and so it's really important to understand that there's a lot of hope out there, and there's people doing cutting edge research that you may not hear about. So I just want to let you guys know that Dr. Sinatra is an amazing guy, and I highly recommend him. He's the coolest guy ever. We talked for a bit after the show and before the show, and just a really, really cool guy. Just want to let you guys know, if you haven't signed up to our newsletter yet, make sure to check that out. I think you guys are really, really going to like it. And what we do is we put our last 5 shows in the newsletter. So if you missed any of the recent shows, you'll get access to it in our newsletter. So that's a good way to stay up to date with all the stuff we have going on. Then we also let you guys know of different summits, free health summits that go on. All you have to do is sign up and register for, and you get access to it for free. So we keep you up to date on all the summits that are going on year round. So you can make sure to check that out. And then also in the summit, or in the email too, is I usually highlight, a show from the past. So, these shows range in topics for everything from health, spirituality, and everything in between. So we highlight a lot of our past shows. So, the newsletter is a really great way to stay up to date with everything we have going on. And there's always something in there for everyone, whether it's a past show or a current show, or a product discount, or a sale going on. A lot of people are signed up because they want to know about Black Friday, different sales happening throughout the year. So our newsletter is the place for that. So make sure to sign up to our newsletter. If you just go to extremehealthradio.com, you can get access to it. That way you won't miss any of this information that we share on our website, because a lot of it, if you know information, like Oprah says, when you know better, you do better. So it's really, really important, I think, to be studying how to be healthy, so you have the most energy and the most vitality, and you live without diseases for a long, long, long time. So I'm just honored that you guys are here. I'm honored that you take the time to listen to the show. And if you enjoyed it, leave us a review on iTunes. If you got your iPod there, or your podcast player, and are in Stitcher or iTunes, head on over to iTunes and just leave us a review. We'd really appreciate that. And also, don't forget to share this show with your friend as well, on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. Make sure to share it. So that's about it. We have shows every single week, so make sure to sign up to our newsletter so you don't miss any of them. And I want to let you guys know too, we are opening a members site, a member academy, Extreme Health Academy it's going to be called, and we're partnering with Dr. John Bergman, and we're going to be bringing you all kinds of powerful, powerful tools to help take your health to the next level. And it's going to be an amazing place. So if you want to find out more about the Extreme Health Academy, I would recommend signing up to the newsletter for that, because that's a separate sign up. And people that are on that list, I will let you guys know, and you will get the best discount that it will never be that as cheap as it will be when we first open the doors. So make sure to get on that list so that at least you can be notified when we open the doors. Right now, it's looking like mid-January is when we're going to be able to do that. We're putting so much work in behind the scenes so that we can open up and really, really help a lot of people. So if you want to take your health to the next level, if you want to get tools, if you have any kind of health concern, health challenge, or maybe just like a health fear, like you don't want to get cancer, or you don't want to have heart disease when you're older, you don't want to get diabetes, or if you're currently dealing with something like that, this is going to be the place for you, because not only is it going to be cutting edge information and tools and resources and courses for you to overcome these things naturally with a step-by-step approach, but you're also going to be able to connect with other of our listeners too. So you're going to be able to connect with each other and share what works and what doesn't work. And that's the most powerful thing, because, if you have a handful of people saying, I was diagnosed with some disease and I tried, the Budwig diet, and here's how I did it, and, it worked for me perfectly, and that person has the same condition you do, then gosh, what a powerful thing to be able to connect directly to other people who are on the same path as well. And so a lot of people in our world are really desiring to, live a long time because they got a lot of work to do. That's one of my goals, is to live to 150. I'm sorry, 180. That's what it was, 180. So I need the tools. I need to be able to be on the cutting edge of stuff. And so if you want to become like a superhero and live a long time and really optimize the human body, then this is the place for you as well. So this community is going to be filled with all kinds of crazy people like you and me, all kinds of just wacky people that like to take care of their health and prevent disease and just become the best version of themselves. So that's what the type of people that you're going to find inside our academy. So we're super excited. If you guys want to check that out, it is at extremehealthacademy.com. But what you can do is probably the best way is just to go to this particular page. It is extremehealthradio.com/554. And I'll put a link to the academy as well as Dr. Sinatra's sites and all that good stuff on extremehealthradio.com/554. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting us in our store, buying through our links like the, Bellicon Rebounder, the saunas, and all the kinds of stuff we have in our store. Thanks for your support there. And also thanks for your support too by bookmarking and using our Amazon link. You guys are amazing. So we really appreciate that, supporting us through Amazon. That's just an amazing thing. So thank you for that. All right, guys. We love you, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information